All right, Nick, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. New coach in place, new coaching staff in place. Seattle Seahawks seem ready to go, except for maybe at the quarterback position. We're not quite sure exactly what is going on there. And there's some interesting comments brought up this week that I think kind of will give a little bit of clarity about what Coach Mike Macdonald is thinking and GM John Schneider as well. Let's get into the articles and we'll talk about them more on the other side. The first one is from over on NBC Sports. There's an interview with Aaron Levine of KCPQ. McDonald asked, are Geno Smith and Drew Lock both involved in the future of this organization going forward and finding success here? McDonald answered, that's a tough question, and it's one that I probably can't answer right now. We're doing a lot of work on these guys, and I've heard conversations just to get to know them and understand who they are as people and their background, their goals, what their family is like, where they're from. I don't know anything about them coming into this whole thing, and right now we're in the phase of figuring out who they are. Obviously, one or two or both would fit into our plan going forward, but right now we probably don't have that answer for you. And even more foreboding is a comment by GM John Schneider. Let's get into that right now. This is over on X. It says, John Schneider says he sees Geno Smith as the starting quarterback, the starter, until he's not. Very interesting comment by GM John Schneider. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But Seattle fans, in the comment section below, before we get to Nick, I want to hear from you. What do you think the Seahawks are going to do with Geno Smith? Not what do you think they should do. What do you think they're going to do with Geno Smith? Do they stick with him? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to cut him? That would be crazy. But let us know in the comment section below. Nick, what are your thoughts on these comments by the new head coach and GM?
Yeah, so when I first saw these two reports come across the wire at Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days, it was blowing up because people are like, are the Seahawks going to trade Geno Smith? What the heck is going on here? Because those two comments by new head coach McDonald and, of course, Schneider, that doesn't scream ringing endorsement. In fact, the Chicago Bears have said much nicer things about Justin Fields, a quarterback they seem more likely to trade than the Seahawks are to trade Geno Smith. So obviously there's like, what's going on? Are the Seahawks actually going to trade Geno Smith? Here's what the Seattle Seahawks are doing. It's smart. First of all, there is a very low probability they're going to trade Geno Smith. But what the Seahawks are doing, what Schneider and McDonald are doing right now, is they're reading the room, and they've done this the entire offseason. Because if you look at the landscape of the NFL, there are a lot of teams right now that are going to invest big in a new quarterback for the 2024 season. And it's not just the guys at the top of the draft talking about the Bears, talking about the Commanders, talking about the Patriots. If you go down the list, there's a lot of NFL teams. You look at the Buccaneers, right? Baker Mayfield's a free agent. They want to re-sign him. They're going to have to spend and invest a lot in Baker Mayfield. You look at the Oakland Raiders. They're going to likely move off of Aiden O'Connell. You look at the Denver Broncos. They want to move off of Russell Wilson. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They want a new quarterback as well over there as well. Kenny Pickett doesn't look like their guy. The Atlanta Falcons are desperate for quarterback help. There's actually even rumors that the New York Giants aren't happy with Daniel Jones. The Arizona Cardinals aren't happy with Kyler Murray. I mean, you keep going down the list. There are a lot of teams, much more than normal, that are desperate for a quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins is a free agent. They're going to have to invest a lot this offseason at quarterback as well. So right now, there is a massive market for the quarterback position. So the Seattle Seahawks are doing the smart thing. They're taking the phone call. You know, I got really good advice earlier in my career. I said, listen, even if you got a great job, if some recruiter or someone from another company wants to just chat with you about a potential opportunity, take the call. Listen to it, see what they have to say. 99 times out of 100, it's not worth changing jobs, but every once in a while it is. In fact, my most recent job was because I took the phone call. It worked out great for me and my family. That's exactly what the Seahawks are doing here. They like Geno Smith. They want Geno Smith to be the starter. There's a 99% chance he will be. But they're able to read the room and recognize, hey, there's a lot of teams out there that really want a quarterback this offseason, much more than normal. If we can get a desperate Atlanta Falcons team, if we can get a desperate Raiders team, a desperate whatever team to overpay for Geno Smith, and by overpay, give us a king's ransom for Geno Smith in a trade, we'll take it, right? And that's what the Seahawks are doing, man. They did it earlier this offseason when they did a restructuring of Geno Smith's contract. It freed up about $5 million in the Seattle Seahawks cap space. But what it really did is it made Geno Smith a much more likely trade potential target, again, potentially for 2024 by lowering his cap hit for this upcoming season. Now, once again, I don't think they're going to trade him. I think the odds of Geno Smith being traded are tiny. But what the Seahawks are doing here is they're taking the call. They're saying, hey, listen, if anyone wants to give us an insane, incredible amount of draft capital or players or both, like they got for Russell Wilson, hey, we'll take the call. We'll listen. We'll consider it. And I think that's smart by the Seattle Seahawks because I like Geno Smith. I think he's a very good quarterback. Is he a top 4, 5, 6 quarterback in the NFL? Honestly, he's not, right? Nothing against Geno Smith. It's just reality. So if someone's willing to give you a king's ransom in a draft class that has some potential guys that maybe you could trade up and get, I take the call. And I think that's what the Seahawks are doing here. And I think it's a really smart move by Coach McDonald and John Schneider.
Yeah, Nate, I think exactly what you said is correct. And I think if you look at it, Snyder was just being prudent in what he said. He's our quarterback until he's not. He will be the quarterback until we get an offer that maybe makes him not our quarterback. And if we don't, he's the quarterback. And it's just as simple as that. I mean, I don't think he could have said it any better. People probably read a lot into what he was saying, like, oh, that's hyper negative. Not negative. It's really just exactly what it is. He's the quarterback unless he's not going to be the quarterback. And it sounds crazy, but it's just what the Seattle Seahawks are looking for right now. They say, this is our best opportunity. We're not going to overpay for anyone in free agency. There's no one better than Geno Smith really in free agency. You get a guy like Kirk Cousins. I think it's probably about equal. Not going to give you much of an upgrade for what you're going to have to lose by cutting Geno Smith or trading him for undervalue. You're not going to get anything there. You're not going to trade up in the draft to go draft a quarterback. I think right now you're like, hey, if you want to take him off our hands, just like you said, we'll do it. But otherwise, we're going to stick with what we got because Geno Smith, like you said, it's not a top 5 guy, not even really top 10 guy. Top 15 guy, I think he's probably right there. He's probably top 15 quarterback, getting closer 14, 15 in the league. But I think he's just good enough right now to, like you said, potentially tempt some teams that are really looking for a quarterback to help stable their franchise. And that is what Geno Smith is. He's a guy that can be a stable quarterback for your franchise. Not really going to win you a whole lot of games. He's not really going to lose you a whole lot of games. So you can build around him and be satisfied with what you got. So I think Seattle is doing a really smart thing here. And I really like what Mike McDonald's done so far early on this team with the help of veteran GM John Schneider. I think the Seahawks are in a really good spot to potentially, hopefully, get a franchise changing trade like they did with the Russell Wilson trade.
Well, and again, all you're really looking for is to take advantage of some team doing something stupid, which the Seahawks did, right, with the Russell Wilson deal to Denver. Which, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but remember the old Jimmy Johnson quote who said, listen, winning in the NFL a lot of times is just waiting around for other teams to just screw it up. And what the Seattle Seahawks are doing here is just saying, hey, does anyone want to screw it up? Do the Atlanta Falcons want to give us, I don't know, 2 first-round picks or something like that for Geno Smith, allow us to trade up in the draft and get one of these guys this year? If the Falcons are willing to do that, I take that deal. Again, nothing against Geno Smith. I'm just saying you've got the chance to get a Mahomes kind of talent, or a Joe Burrow, a Josh Allen kind of talent. You take advantage of that, right? And I think that's just what the Seahawks are doing here, which is smart. I think that I heard a report. This was years ago. I'm saying around 2012, 2013, and I think it was a GM saying this. It said, "Listen, if you don't have a top 4 quarterback in the National Football League, and at that time it was Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning. He's like, if you don't have one of those 4 guys, I don't care how good your quarterback is, you're constantly looking to get better at that position because the only way you can be a consistent winner is if you have a top 4 quarterback in the National Football League, right?" And for the most part, that's held really, really true unless you're incredibly cheap at quarterback like the 49ers are. But for the most part, if you got to win, you got to be a top 4 guy. You got to be Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, right? Go down the list, Lamar Jackson. Geno Smith, not a top 4 guy, not a top 5 guy. But if a team's willing to give you the assets to allow you to acquire a potentially top 4 guy, you take the call. And that's just smart roster management. That's smart team building. This is what John Schneider is known for. I'm glad to see McDonald's already bought into it as well. Again, smart moves from the Seattle Seahawks. I like their overall strategy. Again, good stuff. It should lead to future success, just the way they approach the offseason, just the way they solve these kind of problems.